they got ready to get out of junior high, they couldn't go to school in Alabama. There was no schools for them. They all migrated toward Detroit, Philly, and all those places. That's where they could finish high school. So he grew up with all his siblings gone. But he had a great father, a great mother, and the town itself was a fairly decent town. But that led him into a lot of different things. And eventually he got in high school. And a little brief story, he thought he was going to get a scholarship for basketball or football or baseball. So he joined the military. 2 weeks during the military, here comes a letter from Alcorn State A&M offering a scholarship, but you know, the military won't let you say, okay, we'll let you go this time. They don't do that. But as a result, he ended up spending some time in Korea. He's also played with Satchel Paige in the Negro Baseball League. I've got box scores. He played with the professional league of Negro Baseball, and he played with the professional league in Hillsborough with the Hillsborough All-Stars. So just a little bit background on him to tell you where he's from and what he's been doing. And now I'm going to turn it over to my dad, who is the first African-American mayor of Hillsborough at a time when it just was, you couldn't see it coming. All right. Dad, first thing I want to ask you in front of all these good people is, what was your motivation to get involved in politics in this local area?
I saw a lot of disfranchisement of all the people, black and white, in Hillsborough. We had a man that resembled the oldest president, running for president now in this town. When he spoke, you listened. We had doctors in this town, I won't call their name, that disagreed with him. And what he did, he took the water heater out, and the doctor had to live in a motel. He did the same thing to a man who runs a Chevrolet place. So beneath the surface, there were a lot of people who disagreed with this fellow, but they could speak out openly against him. I was an outsider. I was a rebel rouser. I was a guy talking about vote. Your vote is your voice. If you don't vote, you don't have a voice. And eventually I got put on committees from the state. And after a long kind of time, they took my area in the town. And I took a chance to run for the town board. I really wanted to run for county commission because the problem with the school system. And I want to deal with the problems in the school and the finance and the hiring of teachers. And I figured, well, it's better to grab a hand in one part of the government, and I could talk over here. And I realized when I got on this side of the government, wow, mismanagement, misuse of funds, town going broke, not paying their bills and everything. And I said, Lord, what have I got myself into? So I went to the Institute of Government in Chapel Hill. Now, some of you probably know where that place is over there. And I threw myself at their mercy. Help me, show me, tell me what we need to do, how government is supposed to function. Because when I was on the town council, the man was there and said, I rule. I said, excuse me, sir, you don't rule. We have to vote on it. Well, studied when I was at North Carolina Central, a little bit about business administration. I went to look at the books. We're not collecting our money on time. We had people who were working. We had to hold our paycheck until the mill paid their water bill. That's the way to run a business. So I began to do a lot of background work, and I found, oh my God, we're going in the hole. If we had stayed in that direction, within a year, a judge would have came in, foreclosed the town, and took over, made all the arrangements around the town. So a few brave people who are not here, and I won't call them names, I'll miss some of them. They were brave enough to stand behind me, and I was the lightning rod to go to Raleigh. Department of Transportation, Attorney General's office, give me a roadmap, show us how we're supposed to do things in Hillsborough. Shortly after that, the man retired. I looked and I said, oh my God, we had to raise the water rate, we had to raise taxes. As one of my friends said, the ox is in the ditch, we got to get him out. And we did that. And we did get run out of town because we were going to a huge deficit. And when that happens, the state will come in and take over the town, and they'll set the standards for your taxes and that kind of stuff. So along the way, I had some good people who helped me. And I see a couple of the ones, I recall when Carol Rance, first smart lady, Betty Eidner, some other friends who were my backbones, my kitchen cabinet. I could talk about things and not worry about getting back in the street. We could discuss issues and find solutions to problems. And that's really how I made it. It wasn't me, it was a we. And I always have my we. And I was afraid to make mistakes. I was afraid to call on people I know didn't like me, because when I committee of 5 people, I get 3 I could count on. 2 I know didn't like me. It's better to have me inside the tent than have on the outside of the tent. And eventually that's how I got it done. All of a sudden they said, you know, he's not a bad nigger after all.
Yeah.
That's right. You know, that was their problem, not mine, because I knew who I was, you know. And my idea was to make the town a better place. And it's a good ride. The first 4 years, I did real good, and all of a sudden, trouble came. I got defeated. You remember that, Miss Hyman? I got defeated. And all of a sudden, the town didn't get any more money. Back then, we called it going to Washington, milking the cow. I won again. And I went to Washington. I met the members of the Black Caucus. Began to get funds to create roads, rehabilitate homes in northern Fairview and West Hillsborough, make life better for people in and around Hillsborough. And all of a sudden they said, you know, leave him alone. You know, he knows where the money is. You know how to milk the cow. I did that. But it was never nothing for me. It was always about the people. Because if I'd been selfish, a gentleman came to me once and offered me an astounding, atrocious amount of money. If I'll just go home and sit down, take it easy. Well, I have this son, another son, and some young children. I said, if I do that, all their lives, and have to live my legacy of taking a pride and not being honest, and I couldn't do that. So, money's a good servant. You support master if you spend all your time trying to make it. So I did without a lot of things to sacrifice to make sure that my family was fed, but I did things right for the town. It wasn't about me, it was a we. And I enjoyed it. I look at Betty Idler, Carol Rance, people I could call on to do things that think out loud outside the box, get things done, put them on committees so the government would function. It wasn't about me, it was about us, all of us. So we had a tornado that got through Hillsborough and destroyed a lot of homes, and a couple people lost their lives. And the newspaper people got in my face, said, what about it, man? I said, well, let's talk to the people who did the work. I'm the guy that made the telephone call to get the help in here. But if you talk about the guys who did the work, you know, they're the ones who give the answers. And that's the kind of person I was. It was never about me, it was a we. It wasn't a big I, and little you. So if everybody is somebody, anybody can be a nobody. You never look down on anyone unless you have to pick them up, you know?
All right.
One of his friend was a lady named Mary McLeod Bethune, out of Bethune Cookers College, who was a friend of President Franklin Roosevelt. Being the youngest in the family, I was right around her all the time. And every time she opens her mouth, I'm looking and I'm listening and learning how to involve people. You get involved in situations, and there's 3 L's in life. Look, listen, and learn.
All right. Let me take that from you, man. I got another question for you, buddy. I told you I'm Sylvester Jr. and I have to do that sometimes. Just to keep it clear, I want everybody to know that at this particular time in his life in Hillsborough, the history of it was known as the KKK capital of the state. You go up on 70 by Bob's Diner across the street, there was a giant sign across, and they would light and burn, and this was every day. So during that period of time, there was a lot of animosity toward what he was doing with boycotts and stuff. And there was a particular time when the safety of his children and family and anybody around him was not guaranteed. And I'd like for him to speak a little bit about that, then I'm going to move on to the next question, Dan. But the safety was a big concern, and this is why.
There's some people who felt that I should be dealt with extreme prejudice. And if I had been a weak person and not having the faith in the country, faith in myself, faith in the people, I would have folded my tent and came home and just let everything go away. But I didn't do that. But there were some people who came and watched my home at night, made sure that my family was safe, because back in those days, there were people who had their homes burned down, people who were killed, and drastic things were done to them. People lost their jobs and everything. Had teachers that lost their jobs here in Orange High because of their activities. But I stayed focused. But one thing, I need to go back a little bit from my days in North Carolina Central, when they had lunch counter demonstrations. I was one person that had a vehicle, and I would take students to march. I met a man that really influenced me a lot. His name was Martin Luther King. And he said to me, Brother Johnson, you're doing a good job. I said, Rev, all I'm doing is bringing people up here to march, because he said, well, we're protesting for justice and equality. People sit down and eat in peace. And that little light in my head that you can do things without being violent. You can do things in a peaceful way. You encourage people who normally would sit at home and say, well, not me, to get involved in it. And slowly it kind of led me the way where I led a boycott here in Hillsborough, firing teachers, changing coaches, putting kids out of school. They put, I think, 20, 25 kids out of school at one time. And it was Reverend Sam Fudge. I don't know, Betty, you remember him? Yeah, okay. I'm going back too far now. I'm gonna tell my age, I keep talking. Well, Reverend Fudge and I started an ad hoc human relations council. And we met at a church up the street where people could come and advocate and talk about their problems. And we got some kids back in school, and some kids ended up going to Florida school because they didn't want them back. They were troublemakers. So that was my beginning, getting into civil rights. I've been full-fledged in it, but I thought justice denied anywhere, the justice hurts people everywhere. So I stayed focused, and eventually I got put on the town planning board, and I'm looking at the town, where we're gonna grow. How are we gonna make highways and places people to live? And I said, okay, there's a place called Fairview north of town, West Hillsborough, and other areas. Well, they were disfranchised too. They were misled by the man who was a lot like the president. Well, I shouldn't say this, but the guy who's running for president now. When he spoke, they listened. If you disagree with them, he would send the people, town workers, to take your meter out. There's a doctor, and I won't call his name, had his meter taken out. He had to live in a motel for about a week, supposedly because his meter was broke, because he disagreed with that gentleman. But what I didn't know, I had that silent majority behind me, because when I ran for mayor, people would give me a ghost of a chance. He's this black guy, who knows who he is? But there were people like Betty Einer, Carol Lorenz, and others who knew that there's somebody who can carry the torch, who's not afraid to seek the truth, and when you find it, speak the truth and stand up. When there's light, darkness, he's a bright light on a dark night, you know?
Okay. Dad, do me a favor and tell them a little bit about what you thought about your interaction with Martin Luther King when he was in Durham and Chapel Hill. What did you find most relevant about what he was bringing, what he was saying?
Well, he talked about being passive, not being aggressive, being a good listener, empowering people. It's not about a me, it was a we, and it's us, not thus. And I learned just from looking and listening back then. I wasn't going into all that stuff, you know. I was just a guy to bring kids up there to picket at the drugstores and lunch counters. But all that sunk in my mind. It's we the people. What we can do as a people, if you seek the truth, find the truth, speak the truth, and follow the truth. It's as simple as that. And that's all I knew. I had people offer me all kinds of sweetheart deals once I became involved in politics in Hillsborough. One deal was to involve grandfather clocks over at the Danny Boone complex when it was going pretty big. Sounded real good. Well, you just sign on to be a part of this corporation, and every 6 months you get a little money. Wait a minute now. If I do that, I cease to be who I am. You could call me in the middle of the night. I've got to sit up and listen to what you got to say. I said, no, I don't want that. If I am not involved in it in a personal way, I'm not going to do that. There were other sweetheart deals that were offered to me, and I turned them down. People thought I'd lost my mind, but I went in it to make money. My job was to please and serve the people of Hillsborough.
Okay, well, thank you, Dad. Now, I have a question, the matter, Mike. Because we're here because of the uncertainty of the times we're living in. And I know I went through a similar time integrating the school system in Hillsborough in 1966, with a lot of things that led to that. But given the dire look that we're facing, I want to ask you that, what would you suggest that how should we approach this in a manner that shows solidarity, it shows this country that there is a thing called um, cohesiveness amongst cultures, amongst races. Because one of the things you taught me very early on, and I want to thank you, I want to go out in front, and thank you for your guidance, your wisdom, and your faith and humanity, because you sent me to a place at 10 years old that wasn't prepared to handle me. And I will tell you that story, but it's not about me. But still, given your wisdom on making those decisions, how would you suggest we approach this now, given the fact that everyone who's been in leadership roles like yourself, especially Dr. King, and I'm gonna mention Malcolm X because you told me of a conversation that Malcolm and Dr. King asked. I want you to share that with them, what Malcolm told him, and then go into telling us about how we should approach this current condition. Like a Malcolm and King conversation, what Malcolm told me about living in time.
Yeah, Malcolm was a fellow who said, by any means possible. Dr. King said, show me a man that don't have nothing to live for, show me a man ain't got nothing to die for. Justice and equality. Two different approaches to the same problem, but two different ways to solve that problem. And the big thing for me was I looked, listened, and I learned. Not to imitate or to repeat what they did, but to do it in my own way, empowering other people. It's never been about a me, it was always a we. I could have easily sat home because this son, my other son, was the first two to integrate the Little League Baseball, integrate the schools, elementary school system. I could have sat on my hands, said, my job is done. Let me just drink my coffee and eat my cake and watch television. But that wasn't the way it was done. There were people who were crying out for justice, for voice. And so my slogan then was get people involved, get people registered. Your vote is your voice. If you don't vote, you don't have a voice. It was as simple as that. I'd go to the churches, ask the pastor to give me about 4 minutes to talk about voting, how to get transportation, how to get help, people to hospitals, stuff like that. And so I made the circuit in Durham, Orange, Wake counties, all up and down the counties, talking to people, how it's we the people, not me and some of the people, it's us. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's not my brother, not my sister, but it's me, oh Lord. And the sad thing is now, people don't teach their children how to pray. People now don't teach their children how to say grace and thank you before they eat. They'll grab the food, run to the room and close the door. And you say anything to them, you're invading their privacy, they take you to court. But you know, if you live in my house, you're gonna sit at my table, you're gonna say your Bible verse, and you're gonna eat, say, excuse my seat, and go take it back to the sink. It's as simple as that. We've gone away from a lot of things to get us where we are as a people, as a country. Sad to say, oh gosh. I'd hate to think of where we're going to be a few years from now. We stay on the same track that we are now with the people who are in Washington. No morals. Morals lower than a snake's belly. No, morals lower than a whale's belly. Anything and everything goes. No respect for themselves, for women, children, anybody else. It's everybody come, get a piece of gold, piece of the pie. America will implode itself. We don't have to worry about that fellow in North Korea, fellow in China, the fellow in Russia. We're going to do it to ourselves, we the people in this country, for greed, selfishness, short-sighted, angry. Once you get people fighting among themselves, I got them covered. So that's what Pharaoh told Moses, keep fighting among themselves. We got them covered. We don't need to have an army, nothing. Keep them arguing among themselves. Until Moses came along. And now Moses in our day and time was Martin Luther King. Before that, there were other guys who tried, but he was the guy that said there's a right way and a wrong way. And the wrong way will lead you to the way this gentleman would go in life. Just do it the right way. Voter education, voter registration. Go out and get candidates for listen and favor some of the things that you want to do, like affordable housing in Hillsborough. I think of Whitted Forest in Hillsborough. I think of Woods of Oakdale. And I got people like Betty I and Carol Rance, people that I could trust, that I could go to bed and close my eyes and know they're going to do the right thing. I didn't have to tell them what to do. They were good people. They could think on their feet. They could negotiate and work with people. And that made me sleep good at night. I don't have to wonder, oh, what's Betty going to do? What's she going to think? I didn't have to pre-program her or nobody else. I trusted them. I trusted their wisdom. I trusted their judgment. And that is lacking nowadays in government. Everybody's kind of, we want to do what that fellow with the hair combed over to one side. We got to please him. But that's not him, it's about us. It's we the people. We the people of these United States of America. He got us divided and fighting among ourselves. And that's not good. That fellow over there in Russia, he's got his problem. But the one in China, he's licking his chops. That's our man. He's our Manchurian candidate. I shouldn't say that, but that's what a lot of people feel. It's big I and little you as far as he's concerned. But it's the little people, everyday workers, people, the grunts, who go to work every day, pay their bills, pay their mortgages. They're the ones that everybody's standing on their shoulders, getting rich. The Bezos and the other guys you see making gazillions of dollars, they could care less about us. All they care about is how much money have I got in the bank? How many euros have I got, you know? Who gives a hoot or a holler where you got a place to lay your head at night? Are you warm? Are you safe? Are your streets safe?
All right, Dan, let me ask you this question. This is going to be a hard one. And I hate to do it to you in front of these good people, but you know, the youngest, when you're a child and you're growing up and your parents are doing things, you really don't have the mentality. They tell us we're not men until we're 21. And so I've had a chance to look back, and I've read history and I've studied history. Lord knows I didn't know I was going to be in the house with a historical figure, but now that I have the opportunity to have hindsight, I want to ask you something about the philosophy of Martin and Malcolm X, because as you stated, Malcolm X said by any means necessary. Martin was a less aggressive guy, and he wrote a letter from Birmingham jail to the white churches. And where I'm going with this is, progress cuts two ways. And we talked about integrating the school system. I was the first to go. The teacher asked me to decide whether I'd rather be called nigger or negro during class. And I was blessed with ignorance because I didn't know what those words were. Had I been with my friends in the street, in the woods, we'd been under the bush looking to see what kind of animal that was. But because I never heard those words before. Anyway, long story short, things got better. I stayed strong and I got on out and had a good life because of this man right here. But here's where I am now. Because of the past, the martyrs, anybody that's my age knows the 60s and how horrible. So 3 stations we had on TV, we saw Martin killed, we saw Robert killed, we saw John killed, we saw a bunch of people killed. And so we're programmed for this mayhem and destruction. My question for you, Dad, is this is where Malcolm plays in, because I don't think we need any more martyrs. Just like the way the country was taken from the native indigenous, they should have fought for their property. Now that we're here, are we going to have to fight for democracy? Or do we let the few that are in power with the money control everything? Do we let them keep running over us until people like yourself, good church-going people, are no longer in existence? Do we have to take up arms? Do we have to fight? This is where Malcolm was. How many martyrs do we need? We celebrate their lives every holiday, but they're gone. We don't have their wisdom anymore. What do we need to do to maintain stability and still call ourselves civilized if we fight? Do you have any input on how we should go forward with this particular person in office? What do we do? Start low. I mean, I tell people, the country was founded in this area. It's this area that's going to have to do the same thing again to let the rest of the country know this is not how we want this to work. Do you have any suggestions on how this group, this body, these churches should come together and handle this, approach it?
Well, the one thing that I don't see in here and should be, see here, the young people with children, because that's where it starts, in the beginning. The children learn from their parents. They're the first teachers, how to eat, how to talk, how to get along with one another. But the problem is now, you can't tell the parents from the students, from the kids. Parents want to be with the kids. Somebody's got to be the grown-up in the room. Somebody's got to show the kids how it's done, the right way. Somebody's got to teach the kids about respect. Yes, sir, no, sir. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, please, and thank you. Those are magic words. Somebody got to show respect when they're dealing with the opposite sex. Treat them with respect. Everybody's got a mother. Treat your girlfriend like you want somebody to treat your mother or your sister. But now it's, well, the idiot box. You know what that is? That the idiot box has ruined a lot of people, because a lot of kids nowadays, that's their learning mechanism. What they see on that is not real. They think this is the way you're supposed to act and do in society, but it's not true. We don't have the training in the school systems like we used to have. I remember a time when I was a kid, we used to have in more devotion. Hello. Read scripture, say a prayer, and sing a song. Years later, they took devotion out of school, took prayer out of school. Excuse the expression, that's when things went to hell in a handbasket. Because a lot of kids never knew what prayer was all about. A lot of kids never heard a spiritual song before. The only time a lot of kids go to church now, sometimes it hurts after take them. And when they get there, they're in a hurry to get out, get back in the street. What are you going to learn in the street? The streets don't give a rat's behind about you. All they want to do is use you and abuse you. And our young people are just blind. Everything they see on the idiot box, they think that's real. It's just, oh boy, that's just facsimile. They throw junk at you, and they change clothes, change styles almost every year. That's how they make their money. They could care less about America.
All right. Thank you, Dad. Now, we've had I know it's never long enough, but I'd like to open the audience up for questions. If you have any questions, I'm sure Dan would be glad to answer them.
Take the microphone.
Any questions? The young lady in the back.
Hi, I was at an exhibit on Reconstruction at the African American Museum in Washington, D.C. I don't know if you've had a chance to visit there yet.
No, I haven't been there.
You have?
No,
It's okay. It's great. There was a phrase in it that struck me, which was, and I forget which time period it was, but it was called "making a way out of no way."
yeah.
And I found myself thinking about that after, in this context of recent events, of where things look just very dark, figuring out how you do whatever it is you can do. I wonder if you knew that phrase, or if your parents were part of that, or if you could talk to us about how we now make a way out of seemingly no way.
Well, the first thing that we need to do is learn how to get along with one another, how to communicate with one another, and how to just not get angry when some people say things that you don't like, because it's 3 L's: look, listen, and learn. Oftentimes, you don't know anything about a person until they start speaking. Once they start speaking, then that tells a lot about who that person is, how much they know, and where they're going in life, or where they're coming from. So nowadays, I don't know, I look at my friend Betty there, a teacher. Kids don't use the media room in the library like they used 2 years ago, or it's on the computer or whatever. They don't have classes where they teach you how to speak, teach you how to communicate one with the other. It's yeah, no, yeah, that kind of thing. I reckon nobody can talk real English nowadays, and they get upset when you try to teach them the right way. But it starts not with the kids, it starts in the home. We got children raising children. We got babies raising babies. Nobody cares anything about the government. Did a lot of that, because they told a black family, the only way they're gonna get help, the man had to leave home. Having babies after babies after babies. And all of a sudden, we hear the word baby mama, baby daddy. And a whole generation, several generations of black kids have lost out not having a father in the home, someone who works they can respect and feel good about. We did it to ourselves. We, the people in America, we didn't stand up. We had nieces, nephews, uncles, cousins. We sat silently by, not wanting to correct them, say, that's not the way to do it. Do it this way, do it that way. For instance, when you sit down to eat, everybody sits at the table to eat. Nobody says a blessing anymore. Nobody blesses the food anymore. Nobody says, excuse my seat when you get up and take your dish to the sink. Those are things I taught when I was a kid. How to respect yourself, how to respect your family, how to respect others. Even when they don't respect themselves, you still have to give it. In order to get respect, you got to give it. And when people disrespected me, I didn't get angry with them. You know what? That's their problem, not mine. Because I know who I am, you know? And that's a sad thing now. We got kids want to imitate somebody else. Imitate the people they see on television. Or imitate their friends. Be who you are. The person you see in the morning, you get up, brush your teeth, shave, whatever, that's who you are.
That's a good way to segue into the next question. Any more questions? This young lady right here.
Hello, Mr. Johnson. Do you have specific memories of riding around with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that you can tell us about?
Well, just one. Yes, there was one occasion. I was a student at North Carolina Central University, and I had an automobile, so I told the students to do the sit in at the lunch counters, and I had a chance to chat with him, and we talked about what you believe in, what you're willing to sacrifice, if it means losing your life, sacrifice for what's right. It was interesting to be with him and Jesse Jackson, some of the people who were around him, but I mostly listened rather than ask questions. I just listened to them. And they realized that if you continue to do the right thing long enough, even evil will have to stand aside and let you go, you know, let you do your thing. That wasn't easy for me, being a young man, being in the military, being knocked about here, through the yard around. But I learned sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but words will never harm me. People will say things to see how you're going to react to it. They'll do things to see how you're going to react to it. But, you know, that's your problem. If one guy's a fool in the crowd, why should I join you to be a fool too? You know, it's as simple as that. But we react to what people say. We react to what people do. You got to sit, stop, look, and listen. And a lot of people don't do that now. It's just knee-jerk. Where you see you're going to knee-jerk, follow the leader, not really knowing where the leader's going to go. I'll make the analogy when a lot of people are in a room and they're blind. Only one man has an eye. You know what he is? He's the king, because he's the only guy that can see. When I used to substitute in the school system, I did that, Miss Iden. I had all the kids to stand up, put their hands over their eyes. I had one student covered one eye, so everybody go to the door. And they were running all over doors. So that's a lesson right there. He who is uneducated, the man who is in education and knows something, he is the leader. That's pretty much what's happening now. People who have the education and knowledge how to get things done, supposedly they're the leaders, but they're always the best leaders. But the more you learn, the more you earn. And you can't complain unless you're in the game. And you don't try to be like somebody else. That's the hardest thing in the world. I want to be like so-and-so. Just be yourself.
Let me ask a question, Dad. This is what I want to know. Do you think that the murders of Martin Luther King and all the people who are now martyred, who were leaders, who were fearless, who had faith, do you think that their murders on global television influenced us to the point where now our leadership is lacking because people fear for losing their lives. I understand that in a conversation that Malcolm and Martin had with each other, they both acknowledged that their time was short. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, they knew that they weren't going to be around long because they were agitators, agitating for justice and equality for different ways for the same reason. And if you, back in the day, spoke out, and this happened to me, I got a light in my backyard now. Duke Powell had asked him to put a light in my backyard, and some men had watched my home for about 2 years because I was to be taken out with extreme prejudice back in the 60s because we boycotted stores in Hillsborough, we boycotted supermarkets because all we wanted was a voice. People that looked like us to work at the lunch counters, people working the courthouse, people working civil service jobs at banks and stuff. All that came about, but you got to have the courage to say what you believe. There's no saying practice what you preach. If you preach one thing and you do something else, then you're not an honest person. And so for me, I practiced what I was preaching. I marched in the street with the kids. I marched in Durham. I met with people and discussed the issues. How can we do it? We formed carpools to take people to Durham to shop because we protested against the practice of a local merchant at his supermarket. We did that for a whole summer in 1969. And we brought about cashiers coming to that grocery store. We brought cashiers coming to the bank. We finally got clerks in the courthouse, but we didn't get anybody. We got young people who were qualified, people who could go in, we felt could do the job, so that the other young people coming up and say, well, I want to be like that person. It wouldn't just give me a job. I got 2 hands, I got a strong back. Not that, no, you got to have it up here too. You got to have the ability to take a lot of abuse because people would test you and say things that would aggravate you, but you got to learn to smile. That's their problem, not mine. And that's what I had to learn to do. In West Hillsborough, I was one of the most hated persons in town for a long time. Once I got on town board, began to go to Washington to get funds, we rehabilitated a lot of homes in West Hillsborough. Carol Lorenz and somebody else who else, Betty was on committees. We rehabilitated a lot of the old mill houses, put roofs on them, sealed siding, water and sewer, bedrooms and stuff. And all of a sudden, I wasn't such a bad guy after all, you know? And then people can look at me as for what I could do, not for who I am. And that's all they asked me. Don't judge me on the content of my color, judge me on what I can do up here for all of us. It wasn't a me. It was, we had a tornado to come through Hillsborough. Betty probably remembers this. Years ago, this took up a lot of property in town. Here come the newspaper people, television in my face. Yeah, what do you think? I said, wait a minute. And I called the director of emergency services. You talk to Nick Waters. Some of you probably know Nick Waters. Talk to Nick. Nick can tell you more about what's going on than I can. I'm just the guy to call Nick to come help us out. So don't single me out. These are the guys, you know, it was never about me. It was about us.
All right.
We the people.
Thank you, Dad. It's all about team. There's no I in team. Are there any more questions?
I've got one.
Yeah.
Horace Jr., you talked about integrated schools in '66.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, you told me the story, your story.
Yeah.
And I'd like to explore that a bit because it was pretty impactful to me, you know, about what was happening in Hillsborough at that time.
Yeah.
And how that was managed. And I'd like to find out how, and you, on the decisions you made during that period of time.
Okay. I can start out, Dad, if you want me to.
Yeah.
I know, like I said, there was no democracy in my household as a child. You do what your people say, you do it well, and don't say a word. That summer, you know, as Dad said, it was a normal summer. 10 years old, going to the 6th grade, and then I think our cafeteria at Central High School had a problem. And I think when they met to try to get it worked out, they said, well, it's not going to be fixed anytime soon. Just march the kids from Central down to the Wheated building, which is named after my cousin, but it was Orange Junior High then. Rain, sleet, or snow. So Dad wasn't about to hear that, so he went and sat for 4 hours at the Board of Education, got an application to have me go into the school, high school. I didn't even know. That day we start the school, we drive by the black school, I'm thinking we're going downtown, and we pull up to the Whitted building, the Orange Junior High, and we get out, and the kids parted like the Red Sea. And I went upstairs, and he and the principal talked, and I went up to the classroom, and he and the lady stepped out, and I sat in the chair. I'm thinking, I'm getting ready to go. The bell rang, and I grabbed my books to leave, and I looked at him, and he just said, "Stay." And so he left me. I was really angry for a long time because I told you I was reading it. She got in front of the class and told me to stand up and said, "You decide which one of these words you'd like to be identified as, Nigger or Niggra." And I hadn't heard them, so I just said, "My name is Horace Johnson Jr. You could call me that." But then because of the way she led in, I had 4 other names from the students: Spook, Burrhead, Coon, and Porch Monkey. And this went on for a whole year. And about 3 years ago, I ran into a lady at Walmart who was my classmate in the 7th grade. And she recognized me because of my height. And she said, "Aren't you Horace?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "I've been waiting to meet you again for so long. I just want to apologize." I said, "Well," she said, "I was in your 7th grade class." I said, "And?" She said, "The cooking class." I said, "Yeah." And she said, "I didn't want to have anything to do with it." I said, "What are you talking about?" Well, the girls had cooking class and they made donuts and stuff. And milk was a nickel a carton. So despite being the only black there, being chastised and ridiculed, for some reason, every time they made donuts, when they came back to the room, I got mine first. And then I found out why, because the young lady at Walmart told me, I didn't want to do it. They were putting Elmer's glue and you mixing my donuts. And they separated mine from everybody else and gave me mine first. I get a little emotional when I think about it because there's no telling what else they did. But God is good and I survived. You see, I'm not looking like I drank pee all my life. But it was that kind of thing that goes on during that period of time. And I got to tell you something that's really even scarier. A lot of those people stayed here and became lawyers, doctors. And I don't use the names because I don't like to slander people, because like Dad said earlier, your children are representative of you. One of the things I counseled him with when he was running for office was people's names he would use. I knew the children. I could tell him how the children were, how they treated me. And so he knew how to. But it was a journey I don't wish on anybody. Don't get me wrong. I know no one in this room understand how to be a person of color. I don't expect you to. But I do understand that you know how to read and write, and you can see all the tragedies and travesties that took place. So this is what gives me hope. I never gave up with thinking that it's going to get better. As Dad got me through that system, one of the men who was coach of the basketball team wrote a letter to the Board of Education saying he didn't believe in integration. And they never told me until I heard it, some kids talking about the bathroom, which is odd because I wasn't supposed to be in the bathroom. I was told that if I had to use the bathroom to go outside behind the building, and I had to take my own water in bottles because they wouldn't let me drink out of the water fountain. Either way, I found out about it, and I talked with the team in the 8th grade. And for some reason, I guess the coach saw that I could make a layup. He kept me on the team and let me sit on the bench all year. And in the 9th grade, I found out when the date was. I tried out for the team and let me play. Until a friend of mine, who's a friend of mine for life, Greg Strom, got hurt. And he told the coach, "Coach, the only person who can replace me is him." And my dad had always told me in the backyard when he put that goal up, just practice, practice, practice. They ever put you in the game. When they pass it to you, shoot. So I started the 4th game and placed at Greg, and for the first 3 minutes, they never passed me the ball. But as soon as they passed it to me, you know what happened. I shot 8 times. Every time they passed, I hit 8 shots in a row. And the coach said, "Johnson, can you do that all the time?" Yes, it was. But that's proof of that. It launched me into a new sphere. And when he died 4 years ago, I was like the only person of color at his funeral because he was a Marine. And I wanted to tell his family that he gave me a chance. I didn't want them to think, they didn't even know about that. And I just wanted to show them that he wasn't a bad guy. He was a product of his times. And what I thought about the integration system back then was the teacher who, my sixth grade, asked me a question about 2 years away from retirement. So she wasn't used to working with children of color. But yeah, everybody knows Orange County was 10 years behind the Board of Education of Roe versus whatever it is, with a Thurgood following suit with the Supreme Court, which is not, it's a strange coincidence because when I went to work in the city of New York, you know who I ended up working with? Mrs. Thurgood Marshall. That thing was written in 54, the year I was born, and then I ended up working with her husband. I also ended up working with the Worm, Rudy Giuliani, and Bill Slick Willie Clinton. One of the greatest things that happened to me because of my dad's influence on me very early, that Nelson Mandela. Shook his hand, he never spoke to me, but I could tell just by the look in his eyes that he had talked to someone other than earthly being. For him to make it through all the things he went through and have to give up his wife because she was an advocate for him while he was in prison and causing trouble. But still, the bottom line is, I got all of that from him because of his presence of mind to see that you're lucky to live long as I am. The world is going to change a little, be ready for it. And this, I honestly believe that I'm back here in Hillsborough because this is where it all began. And I take care of my parents, my mom and my dad, and just go forward. But Dad, you can expound on that, why your thoughts and things went toward integration.
Well, integration was a bad word. A lot of people didn't want black kids to integrate the school system, but I took him and his brother. He integrated the junior high, and his brother integrated the elementary school right around the corner. And I went to the principal when they got into the school. I said, these boys got named. This is Horace Johnson Jr. The other son gave him his name. If you have any problem with them, you just have to let me know. You don't have to chastise them or cuss them or anything like that. I can deal with it. Well, the upshot of it, I don't know whether it was you or your brother, where somebody put chewing gum in his seat and messed his pants up. And he got upset about it, but I went down and told the principal, I said, well, don't chastise a kid that did that. Just put my boy in a place where you can see him all the time. They were well versed in sports because I had a basketball goal in my backyard. And I put that up real early. He and his brother learned to play ball. I don't know if you ever joined in my backyard. Played for Hillside. Sleepy Taylor from up in Caswell County. Boys out of Chapel Hill. You come to my house in the summertime, you would think you were at the Junior Olympics. I mean, they could throw down. And so I would have a grocery store across the street there. And I'd go buy 2 packs of hot dogs, buns, mustard ketchup, a couple packs of Kool-Aid. I didn't have to worry about where they were. They were in the backyard. They'd play on 3-on-3 or 4-on-4. But the big thing for the boys who came to my house, had to mow my lawn, keep the yard clean, no fussing, no cussing, no fighting. And Miss Betty, remember Rosa at Chavis High School, All-American. Rosie grew up in my backyard. And I was a pretty good basketball player myself. And so we had a game called Horse. I don't know if you ever heard that game. And I could shoot pretty good. And I beat Rosie 2 or 3 times, and he just cried like, Mr. Horace, how could you shoot so good? I said, Rosie, that's all I knew how to do in basketball was to shoot. And then we got in a foot race. I could outrun him, but then one day he beat me. I said, you're on your way now. You can outrun me. You're on your way, Rosie. And so Rosie made high school All-American out of Orange High, and his brother Kenny. They won a state championship. What year was Miss Betty? In '69, wasn't it, I believe? The state championship. Beat Madison there then. 76, 70, 75. And I felt pretty good about that because most of the guys who played, 4 of the guys who played on that team, grew up playing basketball in the backyard just like he did. And they went on to be successful. Man, Ken Sayers went on to be the county finance director. Some of the other guys did real good in Maryland and other towns, had good jobs. And I felt good knowing that I played a part in their lives because what we would do, Ms. Idner, we'd sit on a Saturday and watched O.J. Simpson and the guys playing football. That's it. Those guys got there because they were in college. 4 years they had a scholarship. It's not like one and done nowadays. So you go there, you learn. The more you learn, the better you earn. And so they learn just by watching the guys on television. We sit down on Saturday in my living room, and then about 5, 6 boys sitting around, we were just watching television. And I would explain to them how things happen, why it happened. I can't remember. What's the Dr. Freddie Parker? Some of you know Freddie. Freddie couldn't play sports, but he came to my backyard and he listened. And there were other young men who did pretty good. Gerald Shanklin did pretty good. Several other, Cornelius Cathcart, I don't know if you remember him or not, he's a doctor now up in Virginia, but he played the Orange House basketball team. They all came to my backyard because that was the place to play. That was the only recreation they had was my backyard. Because I could look out my kitchen window. I knew where he was. I knew where his brother was.
All right, thank you, Dad. All right, thank you guys. You know, it's a trying one this morning. Dad's 94. Any more about that time, please don't hesitate to definitely reach out to me and I'll be glad to come back. Because like I said, this is inspiring me, and I never thought I'd see it in this town. But this is really good. I'm glad Dad got the chance to see his work.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thank
Yes,
you. We're honored as a parish to have you here.
Yeah, thank you.
And Horace Jr., thank you for being here today. I've heard about being quiet and looking and hearing and learning. I've heard about sustaining relationships. I've heard about knowing who I am and not worrying so much about how people are reacting to me. I've heard about building relationships. I've heard about empowering little people. All that today. Thank you.
Thank you.
And